Don't fall for me, she said, smiling like she already knew it was too late. The first time those words left her lips, it wasn't a warning. It was more like a whisper meant to protect something fragile, maybe her heart, maybe mine. But standing there, in the soft light of her living room, with her hair loose around her shoulders and the faintest scent of coffee and rain between us, it didn't feel like something I could obey. She was 40, maybe 41. The kind of woman who carried time with grace, not fighting it, not flaunting it. Her voice was steady, her movements unhurried. Every glance, every word, felt deliberate, like she knew exactly how close to stand without crossing a line. And I, 25, curious, a little too honest for my own good, kept pretending not to notice the way her eyes lingered just long enough to undo me. We'd met through something ordinary, a work project, a few too many late nights going over drafts and details. But this evening was different. There was no reason for her to invite me in after the meeting. No reason for me to say yes. The room felt warmer than it should have, like the air itself held its breath. She moved to pour wine, said it was for company, though her voice faltered just slightly. The glass trembled when she handed it to me, only for a second, but I saw it. And I think she knew I did. Her laughter was soft when I made some small joke to fill the silence. She brushed her hair behind her ear, the kind of gesture that doesn't mean much until you're close enough to notice the details. The glint of gold at her wrist, the faint trace of perfume that only appears when someone leans too near. I shouldn't have stared. But I did. And she caught me. That moment stretched, long enough for both of us to realize we weren't pretending anymore. Her lips parted as if to say something, but instead she looked away, setting her glass down on the table, a little too quickly. "You're quiet tonight," she said, almost teasing. "I don't want to say something I shouldn't," I answered. She smiled, that knowing kind of smile that hides as much as it reveals. "Then don't," she whispered. But her voice had changed, lower, softer. It didn't sound like she wanted me to stop. Outside, the rain picked up, tapping against the windows. The sound filled the space between us, a rhythm neither of us could ignore. She moved closer, reaching across me to pick up something from the table, or maybe she didn't need to. Either way, her arm brushed against mine, her sleeve catching lightly on my wrist. It wasn't much. Just contact. But it was enough to make every thought scatter. When she turned her head, we were closer than before, close enough that I could see the faintest smudge of lipstick at the corner of her mouth, the tiny line that appeared when she tried not to smile. Her eyes met mine again, steady, calm, and yet not calm at all. She spoke first. "You should go," she said. But her voice didn't sound convincing. Neither of us moved. For a heartbeat, maybe two, it felt like the whole world was balanced on that silence. Her breathing. Mine. The sound of rain outside. Then, the sound of a door opening somewhere in the house. A faint voice calling her name. She stepped back, fast, too fast. Her composure returned in an instant. I stood there, trying to remember how to breathe. "Don't fall for me," she said again, quieter this time, but the look in her eyes said the opposite. And I realized maybe I already had. To be continued. The next time I saw her, she acted as if nothing had happened. Just a polite smile, a soft hello, and the same composed calm she wore like perfume, invisible but impossible to ignore. But something had changed. Maybe it was the way her gaze lingered half a second too long when I walked in, or how she tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear the moment I looked at her. Like we were both trying to erase the memory of that night, and failing quietly. She was sitting by the window, sunlight tracing the lines of her face, making her look softer, younger, somehow. There was a cup of coffee beside her, half forgotten. I sat across from her, pretending to read over the papers she'd asked me to bring. Pretending not to notice the faint red mark on her finger where a ring used to be. "I didn't know you liked working on weekends," I said. She gave a small, careful smile. "I don't. I just like the silence." The way she said it, like silence had become something she'd learned to live with, made my chest tighten a little. I wanted to ask why she wore that expression sometimes, the kind that looked like remembering hurt more than forgetting. But instead I said, "Silence isn't so bad when you have company." Her eyes met mine, unreadable. "Depends on the company." There it was again, the push and pull, the teasing that wasn't really teasing. She wanted distance, but her words kept pulling me closer. I reached across the table to hand her a pen, and for a moment, our fingers touched. It was nothing, a fraction of a second, but the air seemed to thicken between us. I could feel the heat of her skin, not warmth exactly, but awareness. She didn't pull back right away. And neither did I. Finally, she cleared her throat softly, retreating into the safety of work. "You shouldn't look at me like that," she murmured, eyes on the papers. "Like what?" "Like you see something I'm trying to hide." Her words sank deep. Maybe because she was right. I did see it, the loneliness she wrapped in strength, the way her confidence cracked when she thought no one was watching. She wasn't untouchable. She was human, beautifully, painfully human. I wanted to say something honest. Something like, "You don't have to hide from me." But instead, I just nodded and went quiet. Outside, clouds began to roll in. The light dimmed. She stood and walked to the window, arms crossed, shoulders tense. "People talk," she said quietly. "They see things that aren't there. And sometimes, that's enough to ruin what is." I stood too, not sure what to say, or if I should say anything at all. The distance between us was no more than a few steps, but it felt heavier than it should have. Then she turned, and for the first time, she didn't hide. "I don't want to ruin anything," she said, almost a whisper. "Then don't," I said. Her lips parted, as if she wanted to answer, but didn't. Instead, she just looked at me, really looked. Long enough for the silence to become its own kind of confession. And when she finally stepped past me, her hand brushed my arm. Light. Intentional. A touch that said what neither of us could doubt. It started with a message that shouldn't have been sent. Late evening, quiet room, her name lighting up my phone. "Can you come by for a minute? I need your help with something." No explanation. No hesitation. Just the kind of message that carried more weight than words should. When I got there, she was alone. The house was dim, soft lamplight spilling across her face. She looked tired, not in the way people do after a long day, but in the way hearts get tired from pretending they don't want what they want. "Sorry, I didn't mean to bother you," she said, voice low, almost uncertain. "You didn't." She smiled faintly, then gestured to a loose curtain rod by the window. "It's been falling all week. I just couldn't reach it." It was an excuse, and we both knew it. But I played along, standing close, fixing it in silence while she stood just behind me. I could feel her, not touching, but near enough that her presence pressed against my back like gravity. "Thank you," she said softly when I turned. The air between us thickened again, that same invisible pull that always found us no matter how hard we tried to stay apart. I said something, small, meaningless, and she laughed. A quiet, breathy sound that made everything inside me twist. Her laughter died too soon, replaced by a silence that asked questions neither of us dared answer. Then came the knock. Sharp. Sudden. We froze. Her friend's voice echoed through the door, cheerful, oblivious. "Hey! You home?" Panic flickered in her eyes. She motioned for me to stay quiet. I pressed my back against the wall as she opened the door just enough to talk. Her tone was calm, composed. No one would have guessed what was happening inside that room, how close we were, how fast my heart was beating. After a few minutes, the door shut again. Silence returned, heavier now. She turned, exhaling slowly. "That was close." I nodded. My pulse still hadn't slowed. She leaned against the wall, her hand brushing through her hair, and when she looked at me again, something inside her broke, a crack in the careful distance she'd been keeping. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. "I know." Neither of us moved. Her eyes softened, the kind of look that undid me completely. "This is wrong," she said, barely audible. Then why does it feel so right? She didn't answer, just stepped closer. One step, then another, until there was barely space left to breathe. I could feel the heat from her skin, the tremor in her breath. Her hand lifted, hesitated, fingertips grazing my jaw like a question. My pulse jumped, and I leaned in, just enough that her breath touched my lips. Then her phone buzzed. Loud. Jarring. She pulled back instantly, eyes wide, lips parted as if she'd forgotten how to breathe. The moment shattered. She stared down at the glowing screen, a message, someone's name, before locking it without reading. Neither of us spoke. The silence between us said everything. And yet, she didn't move away. Her hand was still trembling when it found mine. The days after that night felt heavier. Every glance, every word, every pause seemed to mean more than it should. We pretended nothing had changed, but something had. She started avoiding eye contact, talking faster, keeping distance like it might save her from herself. But it didn't save either of us. That evening, rain was falling, slow, steady, like the world had quieted just for us. I found myself at her door again, without a reason I could defend. She opened it before I could knock twice, like she'd been waiting. Her hair was damp, her sweater loose, the kind of effortless that drives you insane because it isn't trying to be. You shouldn't keep showing up like this, she said, voice barely holding together. Then tell me not to. Silence. Her lips parted, but the words never came. Instead, she stepped aside. Come in. Inside, everything was softer, low lights, the hum of rain, the faint scent of coffee gone cold. She stood by the counter, pretending to tidy something that didn't need fixing. I stood behind her, close enough to see the way her shoulders trembled when she exhaled. Why do you keep coming back? She asked finally, still facing away. Because you keep opening the door. That made her laugh, but there was no humor in it, just ache. She turned, and the look on her face made my chest tighten. You don't understand what this could do to me, she said. Then make me understand. Her voice broke. You're too young to know what losing everything feels like. I took a step closer. Then let me learn. Her breath hitched. She backed against the counter, nowhere left to go. My hand found hers, trembling, small, warm. Tell me you don't want this, I said, barely a whisper. Her eyes searched mine, desperate, afraid, burning. I can't. The space between us disappeared. Her hand rose, brushed the side of my neck, fingers tracing the pulse she could feel racing beneath my skin. Rain hit the window harder, echoing the rhythm in my chest. She leaned in, just enough that her breath touched my lips, and whispered, This is madness. Then let's stop pretending it's anything else. Her eyes closed. For a moment, the world fell away. No rules, no fear, just the sound of rain and the taste of something inevitable hanging in the air. Then, footsteps outside. She froze. A voice, calling her name. Her body tensed, heart pounding against mine. I could feel the panic rise in her, the pull between wanting and running. Don't say anything, she whispered, breath trembling against my ear. The handle on the front door turned. We stood locked in place, faces inches apart, every heartbeat too loud. And then, the door began to open. The door creaked open, and in that single breath, the spell shattered. Her friend's voice filled the room, light, casual, unaware of what she had just interrupted. We stepped apart like the air between us had turned to fire. Her hand brushed mine as she moved away, quick, shaky, pretending it hadn't lingered. My heart was still hammering, not from fear of being caught, but from how close we had just been. Her friend smiled, talking about something mundane, work, neighbors, something that didn't matter. I could barely focus. My pulse was still tangled with hers, invisible but alive. When the door closed again, silence came roaring back. She turned to me, eyes dark, unreadable. You should go. I didn't move. You don't want that. Her lips parted, but she didn't argue. She just stared, like she hated that I could see through her. Finally, she whispered, You shouldn't know me this well. Something in her voice broke me. I took a slow step closer, and she didn't back away this time. Her breath trembled. You think this is simple? You think it's just want, but what? She closed her eyes, shaking her head. Because I lied. The words hit harder than I expected. What do you mean? She looked up, guilt flickering through the softness in her eyes. When I said I hadn't felt anything in a long time, that wasn't true. I've felt everything. Every look, every word from you, it's been undoing me. The truth hung between us, sharp, fragile, real. I didn't know whether to breathe or move. She stepped closer, slow, like gravity had decided for her. Her hand brushed my arm, hesitant, trembling, then stayed there. I tried to ignore it, she whispered. Tried to make it go away. But every time you walk in, I forget how to breathe. Her confession wasn't loud, but it hit like thunder. I could see her chest rise and fall, see the fear in her shaking hands, see the want she couldn't hide anymore. Then don't ignore it, I said quietly. Her eyes darted toward the door, fear, panic, reason fighting to take control, but she didn't step back. Instead, she brushed past me, her shoulder grazing mine as she whispered, You don't understand what you're risking. I turned to her. Then tell me. She stopped halfway across the room, her back still to me. Someone already knows. The air went still. I felt it, that rush of heat, panic, disbelief. Who? She turned slowly, her expression torn between warning and longing. It doesn't matter who. What matters is, it's too late to undo this. We stood frozen in the tension, too close to let go, too exposed to hide. Her voice dropped to a whisper. So tell me, what do we do now? The clock ticked once. And without answering, I took a step forward, the one that would change everything. The room was dim, the air too still, the kind of silence that makes you aware of every breath you take. She stood near the window, the night light tracing her outline, soft and fragile and unbearably real. I could still hear her words echoing. Someone already knows. It should have scared me. Maybe it did. But all I could think about was how close we had come to something we both pretended we didn't want. She turned when she sensed me behind her. Our eyes met, that familiar, dangerous pull between defiance and surrender. Her voice was low, almost breaking. You should walk away before it gets worse. I tried, I said quietly. But every time I do, I find myself right back here. She closed her eyes, shaking her head like she was trying to summon logic through the storm. You don't know what this will cost me. I stepped closer, until there were just inches between us. I'm not here to hurt you, I said, barely above a whisper. Her breath trembled against the space between us. Then what are you here for? The question lingered. I didn't answer it, not with words. I just looked at her, and for a long moment neither of us moved. Her hand twitched at her side, like she wanted to reach for me but didn't trust herself to stop once she did. The air thickened. Every heartbeat felt loud enough to break the silence. Finally I said it, the thing that had been sitting in my chest since the start. I didn't fall for you by mistake. Something in her softened. Her shoulders, always so guarded, dropped. She looked up at me, eyes glassy, voice breaking on a whisper. You weren't supposed to. I know. She laughed under her breath, a sad, beautiful sound, and finally met my gaze again. You make it sound easy. It's not, I said. That's why it matters. And then there was nothing left to say. Her hand lifted, slow, hesitant, and brushed against my collar, barely touching, like she was testing the boundary she'd been guarding for so long. I didn't move. Couldn't. Her fingers lingered there, then slid up, tracing the edge of my jaw before stopping at my chin. Her eyes flickered, want, fear, memory, all of it flashing in one look. I shouldn't, she whispered. Then don't, I murmured. The space between us collapsed. Her forehead rested against mine, just that, and the world outside stopped existing. No one spoke. The only sound was our breathing, uneven and real. After a long silence, she pulled back slightly, her voice soft but sure. I can't undo what's already happened, she said. But maybe I don't want to anymore. And in that single moment, everything that had been unsaid between us became clear. It wasn't about right or wrong anymore. It was about truth, raw, messy, human truth, and the quiet acceptance that we were already too far gone to pretend otherwise. ChatGPT said. Morning crept in softly, golden light spilling across the room, touching everything it once kept hidden. The storm from last night, both outside and between us, had quieted. She sat by the window, a mug between her hands, hair a little messy, eyes distant. There was something peaceful about her silence now, the kind that comes after finally deciding to stop fighting yourself. I stood behind her, unsure if the space between us was still fragile, or finally safe. Then, without looking back, she said, "You're still here. I wasn't sure if I should be." She smiled faintly, her reflection catching mine in the glass. Neither was I. I took a slow step closer. The air didn't feel heavy anymore, just honest. For the first time, there wasn't fear hiding behind her words. Just a quiet kind of acceptance. She turned, eyes softer than I'd ever seen. "Do you ever think we made a mistake?" "Every day," I said. "But not enough to regret it." Her lips curved, not in amusement, but understanding. She reached for my hand, hesitating for a heartbeat before letting her fingers lace through mine. The touch was simple, human, grounding. "I used to think age meant control," she said quietly. "That it would protect me from this." Her thumb brushed against my skin. "But it turns out, it just means you remember what it's like to want something you can't have, and you try not to feel it." I leaned in closer, just enough for her voice to fade into the air between us. "And now?" She looked at me, no walls, no pretense. Just her. "Now I'm tired of pretending." For a long moment, we just stayed there, watching the morning rise together. No grand gestures, no declarations, just two people who'd run out of reasons to deny what was already real. When she rested her head against my chest, it felt like the world finally exhaled. Her voice came out soft. "You know this won't be easy." I nodded. "Nothing worth it ever is." Her laughter was quiet this time, not nervous, not sad. Just free. She tilted her head up slightly, eyes searching mine before whispering, "Then I guess we'll have to figure it out, one morning at a time." I brushed my thumb against her cheek, and she closed her eyes, not out of fear, but peace. The sunlight caught her hair, the kind of light that makes everything feel new. We didn't need promises or plans. Just this, the stillness, the warmth, the knowing that somehow, against every reason, we had found each other. And maybe that was enough. Her fingers tightened around mine, steady and sure. "Stay," she whispered. "I wasn't planning to leave." Outside, the day began to unfold, ordinary, imperfect, real. But inside, it felt like a beginning.